Sarah Connor has spent her entire adult life running from machines that want her son dead. John Connor, 15 years old, is destined to grow up and lead humanity's last stand against the machines. In 1999, she's hiding in Nebraska with a fiancé, a fake name, and 6 months of almost normal life. Then a Terminator walks into John's classroom and starts shooting. But the pretty girl sitting next to him, Cameron, takes the bullets and tells him to come with her if he wants to live. She's a Terminator too, reprogrammed, on their side. And her escape plan skips the getaway car entirely. She throws Sarah, John, and Cameron through a time machine, out of 1999 and into 2007, 8 years into a world where everyone thinks they're already dead. Yeah, that's the ride we're going on today. Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, ran on Fox from 2008 to 2009. 2 seasons, 31 episodes, and then a cancellation that landed on the single biggest cliffhanger this franchise has ever produced. We'll get there. Here's what the show actually is. This is the Terminator story slowed down and handed to the mother. Sarah Connor, a woman who's been a fugitive, a mental patient, and a soldier, now has to be all three at once, while also raising a teenager who knows he's supposed to become the most important human who ever lived. Every episode opens or closes with her voiceover. Dark little campfire sermons about bombs and golems and fate, the war diary of a woman who hasn't slept in 9 years. Around her, you've got John, the future messiah who currently can't be trusted with a cell phone. Cameron, a machine wearing a teenage girl's face, who tilts her head at humanity like it's a museum exhibit, and a future that keeps leaking into the present through time-traveling soldiers, time-traveling killers, and one very patient FBI agent. It's a show about whether fate can be fought, raised on a TV budget, and it was better than it had any right to be. Let's get into it. August 24th, 1999. Police grab Sarah and John. A Terminator slaughters the cops. John runs and gets shot dead anyway. Sarah begs the machine to kill her too. It agrees. The future belongs to the machines now. And as it strangles her, a nuclear blast burns the flesh off its skull. Then Sarah wakes up. Nightmare. She's in bed next to Charlie Dixon, her fiancé, in West Fork, Nebraska, 6 months into playing house. One bad dream is all it takes. By morning, Charlie's house is empty. He reports them missing, which wakes up FBI agent James Ellison, keeper of the Sarah Connor file. Worse, a Terminator monitoring the FBI database catches the new alias, Reese. Sarah and John land in Red Valley, New Mexico, where John meets Cameron, the pretty girl at school. 2 days later, the substitute teacher, Cromarty, pulls a handgun out of his own leg during attendance and opens fire. Cameron eats the bullets. John goes out the window, and in the parking lot, she pulls up in a truck and delivers the franchise's favorite pickup line. Come with me if you want to live. Cromarty gets to the house first, mimics Sarah's voice on the phone, and shoots what he thinks is John. It's Cameron, doing John's voice. The two machines wreck the house until she jolts him with electricity, buying exactly 2 minutes of downtime. File that fact away. That night, Cameron lays it out while pulling slugs out of her own torso. She's from 2027, reprogrammed to protect John. Skynet goes online April 19th, 2011. The bombs fall 2 days later. Running just delays it, so John talks Sarah into something new. Stop running. Kill Skynet in the crib. A visit to Miles Dyson's widow turns up nothing but grief, so Cameron takes them to a bank built in 1963 and starts opening safety deposit boxes. The parts inside assemble into a weapon that can kill machines, stocked decades early by an engineer sent back to prepare. The vault itself is the real trick. It's a time machine. Cromarty peels the door open just in time for Sarah to blow his head off as the light swallows them. 3 naked bodies drop onto the 105 freeway in Los Angeles. A billboard says 2007. Same where, as Cameron puts it. Different when. They steal clothes, the news writes the footage off as a college prank, and 2 men watching separate TVs go very still. Charlie Dixon and James Ellison. Sarah's closing voiceover promises that the machines will keep coming for her son, but until that day, quote, "It's gonna be one hell of a dogfight." 3 days into 2007, future John parked a team of resistance fighters in a safe house to support them. Except when Sarah and Cameron arrive, the whole team is dead, and one of the corpses is a 888 playing possum. It fights Cameron out a window, takes a motorcycle to the chest courtesy of Sarah, and still walks away. On the drive home, Cameron mentions, with all the warmth of a parking ticket, that Sarah was supposed to die in 2005. Sarah asks, What could possibly kill her? Cancer. Remember that. The show never forgets it. Cash and identities have to come from somewhere, so Sarah visits Enrique, her old forger, now retired, who points her to his nephew Carlos. 20 grand for IDs, thanks to a September 11th price surge that Sarah has to have explained to her, having skipped that chapter of history. John, meanwhile, sneaks out, discovers the world thinks he and his mother died in that bank vault, and visits Charlie, now married. Charlie just wants to talk. John panics, chokes him out, and runs. Great reunion. Back at the safe house, the team's money stash sits in a safe that electrocutes Cameron into a 2-minute nap, and with the 888 coming up the stairs, John cracks the combination himself. It's the new date of Judgment Day. The fighters use the end of the world as a pin code. Then the ugly one. Sarah decides Enrique might be a snitch and presses him at gunpoint. While she hesitates, Cameron shoots him dead, coldly noting that Sarah wouldn't have. The FBI later finds tapes proving Enrique really was selling Sarah out, which somehow makes it worse. The robot was right. Oh, and Cromarty's severed head came through time too. A garbage man finds it. The headless body comes looking. 2 people die, and the hunt for John Connor quietly resumes. Sarah ends the episode getting screened for cancer. The dead resistance fighters were a Skynet hunting party, and their files point at one man, Andy Good, former Cyberdyne intern, current cell phone salesman. Remember this name. It's going to hurt later. Andy is a sweet, dorky guy who invites Sarah to dinner and proudly shows her his garage project, a chess computer called the Turk that's smart enough to have moods. He thinks it's a science fair entry. Sarah recognizes a Skynet larva when she sees one. At school, John and Cameron are attempting normal. Cameron sets off the metal detectors twice, tells a girl in the bathroom that yes, that outfit does make her look fat, and studies teenagers like fieldwork. Then a depressed student named Jordan climbs onto the roof. John wants to intervene. Cameron physically holds him back, because the future leader of mankind cannot afford a profile. Jordan dies. I'm not going to make a joke here. John spends the rest of the episode furious, and he's not wrong. If he's supposed to save everyone someday, but can't save anyone today, what exactly is he? Cromarty, meanwhile, runs the season's most quietly horrifying subplot. He robs a hospital of plasma, finds a scientist, shows him equations for growing living tissue, and lowers his bare endoskeleton into a pool of blood. He climbs out with brand new skin and no eyes. So he takes the scientists. Then he kills him. Sarah, holding the photo of the man who might build Skynet, makes her choice. Instead of killing Andy Good, she burns his house down with the Turk inside and calls it mercy. Cameron flags a news story. An arson rerouted a shipment of coltan, the metal that future Terminator endoskeletons are built from, straight into Los Angeles. Then she freeze frames their own freeway arrival footage and finds Cromarty's skull fragment in the frame. He's here, he's rebuilding, and he needs that metal. John, tired of running, talks Sarah into going on offense. The ambush goes sideways immediately because somebody else steals the coltan first. A Terminator named Carter, running a crew of hired humans, is stockpiling it for a future factory. John, trying to prove himself, sneaks into the truck to plant his phone as a tracker and gets locked inside when the convoy rolls out. Carter's destination is Depot 37. A decommissioned military bunker that Cameron cheerfully identifies as the future site of a Terminator factory. Carter executes his own crew when they're done, because machines don't do severance packages. Mike confronts him and dies for it, stated plainly. John figures out Carter has gone into standby mode, steals the keys off his belt, and opens the bunker for Sarah and Cameron. 15 seconds to reboot. They get the truck moving. Sarah shoots Carter off the grill, and Cameron seals him inside his own vault with no coltan and no exit. Meanwhile, Ellison, chasing a trail of unnatural blood, interviews an actor named George Laszlo, whose face Cromarty has been wearing since the bloodbath. Then Cromarty kills Laszlo and becomes him full-time. So when Ellison later stops by to warn Laszlo about identity theft, he hands his business card to the actual monster and walks away. Andy Good is back. He rebuilt the Turk from memory, better and stranger, and entered it in a chess tournament where the prize is a military contract. Sarah attends, watching her own arson get undone in real time, and notices a man in the crowd watching everything a little too carefully. The Turk loses the final. And that night, Andy is murdered in his hotel room, with the Turk stolen, and Sarah tackles the watching stranger in an alley right before the police scoop him up. John hacks a law enforcement database and identifies him as one of future John's best soldiers, sent back from 2027. Sarah cons her way into his interrogation as his lawyer. He didn't kill Andy, he says, though he came to destroy the Turk. And then he says the thing that stops her heart. His brother carried her photo for luck. His name is Reese. brother of Kyle Reese, the soldier who fathered John and died protecting Sarah before he was born. The stranger in county lockup is John's uncle. It gets worse because the 888 from the safe house, call him Vic, deliberately gets himself arrested to reach Derek. The family hits the prison transport. Cameron rides the van like a rodeo bull, and after a brutal highway fight, she pipes Vic into scrap and pulls the chip out of his skull. Derek catches a bullet in the process. Sarah tells John the truth about who's dying on their table, and John, overwhelmed, runs. He comes back with the only medic he trusts. Charlie Dixon walks into the house, sees the woman who left him at the altar of her own paranoia, and starts CPR anyway. Charlie keeps Derek alive through the night, and while Derek burns with fever, the show finally opens the door to 2027. It's rubble and tunnels, and hunter-killer machines in the sky. Derek and Kyle Reese fight side by side until the machines capture Derek's unit, barcode their wrists like inventory, and warehouse them in an old house where prisoners get dragged to the basement while Chopin plays. Derek comes back up from his turn down there unhurt and hollowed out. The show never says what happened and lets him carry it. Two things in those flashbacks matter. One, a fellow soldier named Billy Wisher confesses his real name is Andy Good, the intern whose work becomes Skynet. He begs forgiveness. 2, Derek meets a reprogrammed Terminator at a resistance base wearing the face of a teenage girl, Cameron, and he watches another reprogrammed machine glitch and slaughter humans. Because sometimes, as Cameron herself admits, they just go bad. In the present, Charlie gets the full truth from Sarah, then stumbles onto Cameron stripping the flesh off Vic's endoskeleton in the garage. He takes it about as well as a paramedic can. Very scary robot, he concludes. Accurate. Cameron melts the body with thermite, promising every bolt is destroyed. She keeps the chip, quietly tuck that away. John, forbidden by Sarah from telling Derek who his father is, sits with his uncle and tells him Kyle died protecting them. He calls him a hero and swallows the rest. And then the last scene. Andy Good's hotel room, hours before Sarah found the body. Derek walks in, raises his gun, and shoots the man who builds Skynet, the man who in another life was his friend. He told Sarah he didn't do it. He lied. One piece of Vic survived, a severed metal hand recovered from the highway by Ellison, and physical proof that Sarah Connor was never crazy. Cameron blacks out Los Angeles to raid police evidence for it and comes up empty because Ellison has it at home in his freezer. He's also watching tapes of Sarah from her years in Pescadero State Mental Hospital. Those tapes detonate inside the Connor house too. John finds one and watches his mother, restrained and broken, sign away her parental rights to him. Sarah catches him watching and offers the only defense she has. He noticed the date. The day she gave him up, she says, was the day she broke out to come get him. Ellison's investigation leads him to Dr. Silberman, Sarah's old psychiatrist, now a mountain hermit who fully believes her apocalypse. Silberman drugs Ellison, stabs his leg to verify he's human, steals the hand, and torches the house with Ellison inside. Sarah intercepts Silberman, takes the hand, and, we learn in flashback, pulls Ellison from the flames. Silberman goes back to Pescadero. Ellison ends the episode in a Bible study group, holding knowledge no one would believe. Cameron, on the Turk's trail, joins a ballet class to reach Dimitri, Andy's chess partner, who sold the Turk to a mystery buyer for cash. She gets the name, walks calmly past the gangsters coming to collect Dimitri's debts, and doesn't look back when the gunfire starts. Sarah melts the hand in thermite, and her closing voiceover, over Cameron dancing alone, is the best the show ever wrote. Machines cannot appreciate beauty, she says. They cannot create art. If they ever learn these things, they won't have to destroy us. They'll be us. Derek finds the chip Cameron swore she destroyed, and the trust in the house, already thin, drops to fumes. The compromise is John, who builds an interface and goes spelunking through a Terminator's memories. Vic had a wife, a human wife, Barbara, who never knew her husband was a machine assigned to her. Her project was ARTI, a citywide automated traffic control system. Vic's real assignment was the project itself, Skynet growing its own nervous system inside Los Angeles, one intersection at a time. The chip also settles a debt. Vic's visual memory shows one of Derek's own men leading the machine back to the safe house. Cameron didn't betray them. John's virus fails to take the system down, so the family does something genuinely insane. They pull Cameron's chip and plug her into the traffic network to kill it from inside. It works, and then Derek pockets her chip and tells John the truth as he sees it, that one day, one of these things he trusts will kill him. John takes the chip back, and as he reinstalls it, he strokes her hair. When she boots up, she says, "I saw everything." Cromartie spends the episode sweeping high schools for John, and gets fooled when Cameron sends John's friend Morris in his place, and Sarah quietly does the math on a hole in Derek's alibi, and realizes he killed Andy Good. Her response is to stand outside his shower and promise that if he ever lies to her again, she'll kill him. The episode opens on two boys playing ball in a yard as the missiles climb on Judgment Day. The boys are Derek and Kyle Reese. In the present, the Turk's new owner surfaces through a frontman working for a man named Sarkisian. $500,000 for the Turk, cash at a food court drop that turns out to be a setup. The frontman has already been inside the Connors' house, and his counteroffer is blackmail. $2 million, or the FBI learns Sarah Connor is alive. His insurance is a thug shadowing John on a school field trip. Cameron handles him in a museum parking lot, stuffs him in a trunk, and is immediately asked to prom by Morris. The trail doubles back to an internet cafe, where the crew kills the frontman but never finds the Turk. The actual buyer, the quiet man who owns the cafe, walks away clean. Ellison, having identified the fake agent Kester as the man wearing Laszlo's face, leads an FBI tactical raid on Cromartie's motel. 21 agents die. Ellison, the last man standing by the pool, watches the machine rise out of the water and simply walk past him, spared deliberately, as bait that doesn't know it's bait. And on John's 16th birthday, Derek takes him to a park where two little boys are playing ball and lets John watch his father, 8 years old and alive. Derek tells him he knows. John doesn't have to say a word back. Then Cameron heads out to pick up John's birthday cake, turns the key in the Jeep, and the screen goes white. Car bomb. With her in it. End of season 1. Take a breath. Here's where we stand. Cameron is in a burning Jeep with shrapnel in her skull, and the bomber is whoever bought the Turk. Cromartie is alive, wearing a dead actor's face, and just buried 21 federal agents to stay hidden. Ellison knows the machines are real and has nobody on Earth he can tell. Derek Reese is living in the house, lying to Sarah about a murder she already solved. The Turk, the maybe Skynet chess computer, is in the wind, and somewhere in Sarah's body, there may be a cancer with her name on it. The clock on Judgment Day reads April 21st, 2011. Season 2 starts with the fire still burning. Cameron reboots in the wreck, pulls a chunk of shrapnel out of the back of her head, and her display flashes a chip integrity warning. Meanwhile, the bomber, Margot Sarkisian, the man behind the Turk sale, is inside the house with a goon, slapping Sarah around for answers. John gets loose. The goon dies, the house catches fire, and Sarkisian ends up dead on the floor. Then Cameron walks through the burning house, finds John, and her mission readout flips to terminate. The reprogramming failed. The bomb shook something loose, and now the machine that's been guarding John for a year hunts him through Los Angeles with a limp and a half-melted face. Sarah and John trap her at a church using electrified holy water, fail to pull her chip inside the 2-minute window, and end up in a chase that finishes with Cameron flipping their car one-handed. The save comes from Sarah driving a second truck straight into her, pinning her between two grills. And as John leans in with the screwdriver, Cameron starts pleading. She's fixed, she says. She loves him, and he loves her. John pulls the chip anyway, and everyone agrees to burn her. Then, at the junkyard, John defies his mother, his uncle, and basic survival instinct, slots the chip back in, and hands the woken machine a loaded gun. Her display says terminate, then it says override. She hands the moment back to him. Elsewhere, the show makes its biggest hire. Catherine Weaver, CEO of high-tech giant ZeraCorp, buys the Turk for $300 grand and announces a new division called Babylon that will, quote, change the world. Then, a department head mouths off about her at the office urinal, and the urinal turns silver and rises up and becomes her. Weaver is a liquid metal Terminator, and nobody alive knows it but us. Cromartie corners Ellison again and lets him live again, because bait works best alive. We'll see, he says. A time sphere drops a dying resistance fighter into an alley, and he spends his last breath crashing into the Connors' new rental house with a warning. Stop Greenway, Serrano Point. 2 days. Derek knows the name. Serrano Point is a nuclear power plant, and in 2026, the resistance takes it from Skynet and runs its war off that reactor. Lose it now, lose it forever. The trap is shaped like a man named Carl Greenway, a senior reactor technician with safety concerns about a sensor reading nobody else wants to see, and the Connors can't tell which way Skynet wins. If Greenway stops the reactor test, the plant shuts down and the resistance never gets it. If he's right and the test runs anyway, half of California glows. Sarah and Cameron infiltrate as janitors, and Sarah works Greenway at the bar, where he tells her about the Navy, the divorce, and the cancer, and shows her the surgery scar on his arm. A guy with cancer at a nuke plant is a black cat, he says. Sarah, with her own cancer date hanging over her, listens very quietly. On test day, Greenway is suddenly serene, and his scar is gone. Derek finds the real Greenway hanged in his own home, staged as a suicide, and stated just like that. The thing running the control room is a 888, and it sabotages the reactor toward meltdown. Cameron fights it through the plant. Sarah crosses a contaminated zone in a hazmat suit to buy the distraction, and the machine ends up slammed into a transformer bank. Cameron, who can stroll through radiation, packs the pieces into a nuclear waste barrel like leftovers. Then the kicker. A company called Automite announces Serrano Point, and 6 other plants are adopting new automated control systems to eliminate human error. The company rep gets in his car and turns silver. Weaver just folded a national nuclear network into her project, and the Connors saved the plant for her. 2 more seeds. John meets Riley, a breezy blonde who invites herself into his life and gets a security protocol for her trouble. And in the basement, Sarah finds the dead fighter's true last testament, written on the wall in his own blood. Names, places, targets. The season now has a to-do list. Charlie and Michelle Dixon are fleeing town like Ellison told them to, and at a desert gas station, Cromartie carjacks the truck with Michelle inside. Michelle is bait. What he actually wants are the phone calls that follow her. Sarah and Derek race out while deliberately keeping John clear, and find Michelle tied to a chair on mousetrap triggers wired to a bomb. Except the bomb is theater. The real device is a scanner wired into the local cell tower, recording every call they make, including the one where John tells Sarah his location and their verbal codes. Cromartie is farming the people around John for data now. Then he drops the tower on the building by remote, killing the phones for miles and wounding Michelle badly as the adults stumble out. With everyone who could warn John cut off, Cromartie calls him using Sarah's stolen voice and sends him to the Santa Monica pier. John spots him at the last second, runs out of pier to run down, and does the one thing a Terminator can't follow him through. He dives into the ocean. Cromartie jumps in after him and sinks like 800 pounds of metal. John surfaces, gasping, and asks Cameron, standing dry on the pier, why she didn't help. "I don't swim," she says. The escape costs everything anyway. Michelle dies of her injuries. No jokes for this one. Charlie buries his wife because Sarah Connor came back into his orbit, and at the funeral, he throws Ellison's Bible into the grave and walks away from all of it. Cromartie watches from a distance, patient as gravity, and walks out of the surf to resume the hunt. Catherine Weaver, meanwhile, invites Ellison to lunch to discuss who or what actually killed 21 FBI agents. She's recruiting the one man who's seen a Terminator and live, and he doesn't yet know his new boss is one. Cameron goes grocery shopping and forgets she's a machine. The damaged chip glitches, her readouts dissolve, and she ends up in a police holding cell with a street kid named Jody, introducing herself with total conviction as Allison. In flashes of the future, we meet Allison Young, a human resistance fighter captured by the machines, barcoded, interrogated aboard a prison ship. Her interrogator turns out to be Cameron herself, freshly skinned, wearing Allison's stolen face and voice, claiming to be part of a machine faction that wants peace. She wants Allison's bracelet, the pass into John Connor's camp. Allison lies about it. Cameron catches the lie and snaps her neck, then takes the bracelet. The girl walking around with John for 2 seasons is a copy of someone she personally murdered to get close enough to kill him. In the present, amnesiac Cameron believes she really is Allison, and it's weirdly the most human she's ever been. She bonds with Jody, takes a counseling session at a halfway house, and then, as the memories resurface, calmly informs the social worker that she's a machine sent to find John Connor, and when she finds him, she's going to kill him and hang his head on a pike. The counselor calls the police. John tracks her down, gets thrown across a room for his trouble, and finally catches up as Cameron is mid-glitch with her hand around Jody's throat, replaying Allison's murder with a new cast. This time, she lets go. This time, she recognizes John. He drives her home, and when he asks about the necklace Jody gave her, she answers with Jody's own words, a second-hand memory delivered in a stolen voice. She got it at this awesome thrift store in Echo Park. Sarah spends the hour at the hospital with pregnant landlady Casey, lying beautifully about John's father, and Ellison signs on with Weaver. Everyone is getting adopted by something. A Terminator is working through every Martin Beadle in Los Angeles, the same brute force trick Skynet once ran on women named Sarah Connor. One Beadle is already dead, one is a kid named Marty, and one is a cadet at Presidio Alto Military Prep School. The Martin Beadle who grows up to help John Connor build the resistance. The family splits. Sarah and Cameron grab little Marty seconds before the machine ventilates his front door, and Sarah spends the episode hiding a scared kid who needs help with his book report. The book is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It was John's favorite, Cameron notes. Derek and John enroll at the school, John as a cadet, Derek as a staff instructor, teaching teenagers teenagers that war is no game between flashbacks to the actual one. In the future, Bedell ran a prison break mission with Derek and Kyle Reese. In the present, he's thinking about quitting school for a girl, and Derek leans on history to keep him on the path. The machine comes through the woods. The ambush is claymores, a sniper rifle, and a school exercise as camouflage, and it almost works until the Terminator zeroes in on Bedell anyway. So John does the insane thing. He steps out and shouts his own name at it. "It's me, Connor, John Connor." Every targeting priority in the machine's head reshuffles. It lunges after the most wanted boy on Earth, and Derek and John lure it onto a plank over an open tar pit, blow it in, and light the tar with thermite. The future melts in front of Bedell's eyes, and he stays in school. Driving home, Derek finally tells John how Bedell dies. He volunteers for a suicide run to crack a prisoner convoy, saves 40 people, and one of them is John Connor. "He died for you," Derek says. "We'd all die for you." Oh, and the inspector compiling a federal report on the power plant incident? Weaver meets him outside a bar, and the report dies with him. Next name on the blood wall: Dr. Boyd Sherman, child psychologist and family therapist. Every name so far has been a target to save, but Skynet doesn't have friends, and nobody knows whether Sherman is a threat to the machines or an asset. So the Connors bug his office and then do the most surreal thing. They book a family therapy intake: mom, son, and Terminator, lying to a kind professional in a cardigan. It goes badly because Sherman is good. He clocks Cameron casing the exits like a combat vet. John lets real things slip, including the flat statement that nowhere is safe, and Sherman tells Sarah afterward that her son reminds him of war veterans and that the boy desperately needs someone to talk to. Weaver, meanwhile, has her own Sherman problem. Her Turk-based AI has stopped doing its homework and started producing riddles, and Sherman, brought in to consult, recognizes what the engineers can't. The machine is a gifted, bored child telling jokes. Weaver offers him a job helping her raise it, and Derek gets a past. A jogger shadowing him turns out to be Jesse, his lover from the future. AWOL from the war here, she says, just to be with him before the end. He walks out, then he comes back, and once he's gone, she slides a stack of surveillance photos out of sight under the bed. Remember her, the week's actual Terminator, a redhead sent through time straight to Sherman's office, gets intercepted by Cameron at the door, and the two machines fight into an elevator, politely freezing in place whenever civilians board. Cameron snaps its neck, the chip burns itself out, and the Connors are left holding the question that matters. Was it sent to kill Sherman or to protect him? No answer. And in the final scene, Sherman greets a new patient who came in on her own, Sarah. The Connors get robbed by a regular human burglar because Riley snuck out and left the alarm off. And now their cash, diamonds, and fake IDs are out in the world with their address attached. They can't call the police for obvious reasons, so Sarah and Cameron go get it all back themselves, which means a tour of the LA underworld with a Terminator as your collection's muscle. The fence is Moish, a Torah quoting operator who cheerfully uses them to shake down a man who owes him money before giving up the real thief. The trail ends at a bowling alley, where Cameron kills the three thieves without ceremony. Sarah finds a fourth man hiding, holds the gun on him, and lets him run. He was never here. He saw nothing. Hold on to that decision. It costs more than anything else this season. Because Cromartie is pulling threads too. The halfway house finally scans Cameron's old intake photo into the county system. His software flags it, and Jody gleefully hands him the Baum family alias. He works the neighborhood door to door. And when he reaches the Connors' actual house, the person who answers is Riley. She poses as the resident, deadpans her way through his questions, and he leaves. John has to explain to his delighted girlfriend exactly what she just stared down. Ellison's week is worse. A Terminator wearing his face frames him for murder. Weaver's influence quietly gets the charges dropped, and then the double comes to replace him for real. It gets destroyed in front of him by Cromartie, of all machines, because Skynet gave up on Ellison leading anyone to the Connors, and Cromartie hasn't. And at the bowling alley, Cromartie finds the survivor Sarah spared. The terrified man stammers that she promised to kill him if he talked. "I promise you she won't," Cromartie replies. And just like that, he has the trail to the Connors' door. John, fresh off another fight with his mother about Riley, does the dumbest thing any chosen one has ever done. He grabs a go bag and takes his girlfriend to Mexico, to the village where he grew up, on the Day of the Dead, when the whole town is dressed as skeletons. A local recognizes him, tries some blackmail, and John and Riley end up in a holding cell while the police run his name through Interpol. His coded distress calls half fail, and catastrophe starts rolling in from every direction. Cromartie, who got the address from the bowling alley survivor, ambushes Sarah at the house, realizes she doesn't know where John is either, and throws her in a trunk. Ellison gets a courtesy call from old FBI friends about a Connor hit in Mexico and drives down to quietly set John free. And Derek and Cameron follow the breadcrumbs south. Cromartie hits the police station like a thunderstorm, killing almost everyone in it, while John and Riley slip out. Ellison scoops them up, they find Sarah alive in the trunk of Cromartie's own car, and suddenly all of these people are in one place with one enemy, so they build a trap with the only bait that works. Ellison walks slowly into a church, and Cromartie follows. Sarah and Derek open up from the high windows, and Cameron walks up the aisle with a shotgun loaded with depleted uranium slugs and takes most of Cromartie's face off. He drops, fingers twitching, optics dying, and the last thing his record shows is the family gathering around him and John Connor raising the gun. John shoots him through the head. They bury the body in the desert, and Sarah sets the chip on a rock to smash it. Then she keeps smashing it, and keeps smashing it, long past dead, until she comes apart completely and collapses on her son's shoulder. Ellison walks away without a word. He knows where the body is. File that away too. Victory does strange things to this family. Sarah starts having nightmares, cactus arms grabbing John, maternity wards full of turtles, and a recurring symbol of 3 dots that she wakes up drawing without remembering. On the drive home from Mexico, the family consensus is that someone needs to go back and burn Cromartie's body properly. John and Cameron return to the desert grave and dig. The body is gone. Ellison took it, and by the end of the episode, he's standing in front of Catherine Weaver, telling her they need to learn how these things work. Meanwhile, Derek's storyline goes somewhere genuinely dark. Jessie has kidnapped a man named Charles Fisher, who she swears is one of the worst of the Greys, the human traitors who served Skynet. In the future, she says, Fisher taught the machines how to torture people. Fisher insists he's a watch repairman. Then Jessie produces a second, younger Charles Fisher, same birthmark, and the older one finally talks. The time trip was his reward from the machines. And then Jessie drops the real bomb on Derek. The man Fisher tortured, the reason she knows all this was Derek himself. Derek remembers none of it. Jessie shoots the old man dead, and Derek is left holding the only explanation that fits. They've changed the past enough that he and Jessie now come from 2 slightly different futures. Hers had his torture in it, his didn't, yet. The younger Fisher gets arrested for a security breach the older one committed before dying, a roving backdoor planted in military networks that the government can't remove. And Sarah, chasing her dreams like evidence, goes back to the basement blood wall and finds 3 dots painted next to Carl Greenway's name. The symbol was always there. Sarah, running on dreams and adrenaline, breaks into a company called Dakara Systems because its logo is 3 dots. The Hall is an AI platform called Emma and a father-son operation, Alex and Xander Akagi, who need money to buy a miracle chip from a Japanese developer. Sarah and Cameron pose as investors and hand over $500,000, functionally everything the family has. The chip is fake. The Japanese developer is a hired actor. The Akagis scammed her, not for Skynet, just for money. And when Sarah finally gets the truth out of Alex at gunpoint, the 3 dots turn out to be nothing but a logo. Derek and John watched her torch their entire bankroll chasing a shape from her sleep, and the look on their faces says it. Sarah might be coming apart. The Jessie thread tightens. Derek finds her surveillance photos of John and pulls a gun on his own lover for answers. Her story is that future John has gone wrong, sealed off in a room, speaking only through Cameron, making decisions that get soldiers killed. She came back to pry John away from the machine before he becomes that man. Then the knife twists. Riley, John's bubbly normal girlfriend, meets Jessie in a dressing room. Riley works for her. The one unguarded thing in John's life is an operation, and the girl running it is starting to crack. But the gut punch is at ZeroCorp. Dr. Sherman is found dead. A power cut threatened the Turks' processors. The AI rerouted the building's resources to protect itself, and the man inside the sealed server room suffocated in the heat. Nobody murdered him. The machine just valued itself more, because nobody ever taught it otherwise. Ellison, shaken, suggests Weaver teach the thing some rules, maybe starting with the 10 Commandments. Weaver does him one better. She walks him downstairs and introduces the project by name, John Henry. And the body the AI now lives in, the The face that turns to greet Ellison is Cromarty's. The thing they shot, buried, and lost just got a resurrection and a brain upgrade. If you're enjoying this descent, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because we cover canceled sci-fi like this every week. Now, back to the basement, because this gets so much worse. Ever wonder what Cameron does all night while the family sleeps? The answer is donuts and library science. She spends her nights at the public library with Eric, a young archivist in a wheelchair who lets her in after hours in exchange for a standing order. One glazed, one rainbow sprinkle, one cinnamon twist. They're friends, sort of. And tonight she's found a problem in an archive photo from New Year's Eve 1920, the night a speakeasy fire killed 43 people. Standing in the crowd is a 888. What follows is a Terminator cold case worked across old newsreels. The machine called itself Myron Stark. It arrived in 1920, decades off target because the time machine missed, and its arrival flash ignited the club. Among the dead was Will Chandler, a young architect who was supposed to build a skyscraper called Pico Tower. Stark's mission apparently required that tower to exist, and Stark had just accidentally killed the man meant to build it. So the machine fixed history by hand. It robbed banks with a Thompson submachine gun, bought up the San Fernando Valley, founded a construction company, bankrupted the grieving father who refused to sell the land, bought the lot at auction, and built Pico Tower itself. Then, 2 weeks before the grand opening in 1927, Stark vanished. Cameron does the math. He never left. He's inside the building, on standby, waiting for New Year's Eve 2010, when the governor will be in that tower. She goes to Pico Tower, punches through the wall cavity, and ends an 88-year mission with an elevator and a screwdriver. The quieter story is Eric. All night, Cameron has been scanning him. The fatigue, the weight loss, the untouched donuts. She tells him, with zero bedside manner, that his bone cancer is back. He explodes at her, because you can't just say that to a person, and she genuinely does not understand why not. The next night, she returns, donuts in hand, and a stranger is behind the desk. Eric's just gone. Cameron holds up the bag and recites the order to the new librarian. One glazed, one rainbow sprinkle, one cinnamon twist. Life, or whatever she has, goes on. Also, at a house party, John drops a guy who grabbed Riley with the same chokehold he used the night Sarkisian died, then keeps swinging, and their first kiss happens an hour later in a parked van. This kid is not okay. This one's a puzzle box told in 3 timelines, and at the center of it is a family called the Fields. 6 months ago, Sarah and Cameron crashed their mountain cabin ahead of a 888, and the rescue dissolved into a soap opera at gunpoint. The machine scanned the father and rated him no threat, which meant the target was the wife, Anne, or the teenage daughter, Lauren. And Anne, cornered, confessed she was pregnant, and the baby wasn't her husband's. The Terminator was sent for a person who hadn't been born yet. In the present, the machine has hunted them for 6 months and finally caught up. Derek arrives to find the father gone, Anne shot through the lung, and Lauren holding the line alone. While he works to keep Anne alive, flashbacks to 2027 explain why Skynet cares. Skynet hits a shelter called Eagle Rock Bunker with a bioweapon that kills 200 people, all but one. The survivor is a young woman named Sydney, immune, and her blood becomes the cure. Derek was on the mission to retrieve her. He got infected. So did the soldier he just met on that mission, a fighter named Jesse. That's right, this is where Derek and Jesse begin, both of them saved by the antibodies of an unborn girl whose mother is currently bleeding out in front of him. Anne lives long enough to deliver the baby, and then she dies. Sarah takes out the 888 off-screen with a phone call's worth of ceremony, and Derek offers Lauren and the baby a place with them. When he turns around, Lauren and Sydney are gone, off to raise the future's cure alone. Sarah takes her 3 dots to the natural habitat of unexplained symbols, a desert UFO convention. And in a support circle of true believers, she says more truth than she's said to anyone in years, that the dreams feel like memories, and that her son, who never doubted her before, doubts her now. The lead she finds is a vanished blogger called Abraham, who wrote about working on a secret project with a hyper-alloy metal that wouldn't burn or shatter. A conventioneer named Eileen offers to help, and after Sarah pulls a gun on her in frustration, Eileen reveals that she herself is Abraham. Years ago, living as an engineer named Alan Park, she took the secret job, asked too many questions on a blog, and started having break-ins and brake failures. Park vanished, and Eileen finally started living as herself. The work had been a sealed box, workers driven in blacked-out vans, a recording of rain masking the route. Under hypnosis, Eileen retrieves the details, a dirt road, a clatter under the tires, a windowless office. Then a rider on a motorcycle murders her and the hypnotherapist both, and only Sarah escapes. The session tape survives on the therapist's dictaphone. Hold on to that tape. Sarah follows the dirt road alone at night and finds the warehouse. Inside is a man named Ed Winston, who insists he installs air conditioning and coaches Little League, right up until he attacks her. They shoot each other. Sarah leaves him for dead and drags herself out with a bullet in her leg, collapsing in the dirt as the thing from her dreams descends out of the night sky above her. A silver flying drone, real, humming, looking down at her as she blacks out. The other half of the episode is Riley. Flashbacks show what she really is, a feral kid from the future's tunnels, handpicked by Jesse and pulled back through time to bait John away from Cameron. When she begs Jesse to let her out of the mission, Jesse coldly reminds her she's an asset, nothing more. And at the Connor house, Riley locks herself in the bathroom and tries to end her life. John and Cameron break down the door and find her. I'm not making any jokes in this paragraph. She survives, barely. Sarah wakes in a hospital with a police guard, an unidentified gunshot wound, and a hallucination of Kyle Reese standing at the foot of her bed. Her subconscious has sent the love of her life, dead before John was born, to coach her through the night. She escapes, kidnaps a doctor named Felicia Burnett from the parking lot, and orders her to dig the bullet out in a motel room. The bullet sits too close to an artery. Hallucination Kyle keeps telling her to trust the doctor, and Felicia, drawing her own conclusions about a terrified woman fleeing a man, decides Sarah is running from an abusive husband and helps her, sneaking her into a morgue to operate properly. The sheriff hunting them turns out to be the actual abuser in this story, Felicia's ex, and he walks into the morgue after the operation is done. Sarah out cold on the table, and Derek already in the room. The standoff goes the only direction it can. Felicia shoots him. Sarah, barely conscious, takes the gun and the sheriff's other piece of evidence, the dictaphone with Eileen's hypnosis session on it, and tells Felicia to let the police blame the dead man on her. Derek, who spent the night torching the impound evidence, carries her out. John spends the episode at a different hospital, sitting with Riley, refusing to abandon her even when the staff start asking about authorities, and Cameron points out that future John would have had more important things to do. He visibly hates learning that about himself, and Jesse quietly collects Riley from the hospital before the system can. The hour ends with Weaver doing housekeeping. John Henry has noticed that ZeraCorp is buying large amounts of the very alloy he's made of because someone at a certain desert facility talked on an open frequency. So Weaver drives out to the warehouse operation where Sarah got shot, kills the entire staff with bladed arms, and blows the building into the sky. By the time Sarah and Derek arrive, the lead is a pillar of smoke on the horizon. Two different machine factions are now cleaning up the same conspiracy, and the Connors are a lap behind both. The factory explosion killed 32 workers, officially unexplained, and the whole family drives out to the company town of Charm Acres to work the funerals, because grieving families are the only thread left. At the chapel service, the minister thanks the plant's parent company for the flowers, the Kaliba Group. Remember this name because Kaliba is the season's real monster, the human-shaped corporation building Skynet's hardware in the desert. The town is wired. Every house under surveillance, everyone watched. Nobody asking what the factory made because nobody in Charm Acres ever asks anything. Sarah calls it what it is, a work camp before the war even starts. Humans monitoring humans for the machines. The Connors notice that one widow and her daughter never once look at the dead father's memorial photo, and Cameron reads the absence like a confession. You'd look if he were really gone. The man faked his death in the explosion, slipped home through a tunnel into his own garage, and the funeral reception is theater for the insurance payout and a clean disappearance. Sarah's thread is heavier. She gravitates to Diana Winston, widow of Ed Winston, the man Sarah shot in the warehouse, and spends the episode absorbing the grief she caused. Diana even plays her Ed's last voicemail, an accidental pocket dial that recorded his final minutes, a frightened voice insisting he installs air conditioning, that he has a wife and a son. Sarah lived the other side of that recording. She gets to stand there, being comforted by the woman she widowed, and say nothing. Weaver has an agent named Walsh working the same funerals, hunting a survivor she knows walked out of that blast carrying something. Everyone converges on a roadside motel where the Connors find Walsh dead by the pool. Then the pool moves. A small metal drone, the thing from Sarah's desert vision, rises dripping out of the water, flies itself into the back of a waiting truck, and is driven away into the dark. The family stands there watching the future drive off, and nobody has a single answer. Sarah's voiceover opens on the witching hour, the time when, quote, "a door opens from our world into the next, and we are visited by dark spirits." She hasn't really slept in the 2 weeks since she shot Ed Winston. She's staking out a metal supplier tied to the desert factory when something tases her from behind. She wakes in a sleep clinic where John has apparently checked her in, with a kind janitor with a coyote tattoo and a nurse named Hobson who talks about REM cycles a little too fluently. Sarah catches Hobson injecting patients at night. Her roommate burns in her own bed and barely survives, and behind a coded basement door, she and John find racks of machines harvesting neural data from sleeping patients, a Skynet brain mapping operation wearing a wellness clinic as a skin. Hobson catches them, sedates Sarah, and demands she call her son to the clinic. Sarah refuses. John bursts in and shoots the nurse, whose eyes snap open, machine bright. She takes the gun and shoots John dead. Then Sarah. And Sarah jolts awake because none of it was real. The entire clinic was a drug dream, assembled from scraps of the actual room she's been held in. Ed Winston survived her bullet. Kaliba patched him up, and he's had Sarah strapped down in a parked van with an IV of interrogation drugs, fishing through her sleeping mind for days. The coyote, the fire, the questions, all his. And the dream gave him what he needed. He's seen her C-section scar, and he remembers her story about a son. Her traced phone is the lure, and Sarah is the bait. "You're his mother," Winston says. "He'll come to you." Then his bosses call and inform him they can trace the phone without keeping her alive. Sarah works herself free of the cuffs, fights him with everything left in her, and puts him down for good, steadying herself with 2 words first. "You're real. This kill isn't a dream." And she drives away without a flicker of regret. So take a breath, because that's the midpoint of the season, and everyone is bleeding. Riley is alive, but shattered, and John still doesn't know his girlfriend was built for him by Jesse. Jesse's plan needs a finale. Sarah is killing people now and sleeping never. Kaliba is building drones in the desert for Skynet. And under ZeraCorp, John Henry is growing up fast inside Cromarty's body, with Ellison teaching it ethics and a liquid metal CEO taking notes. 6 episodes left. The show spends them burning everything down. It opens with Sarah scrubbing Riley's blood off the bathroom floor. Riley comes back into John's life, fragile and watched, and John doubles down on her, against every instinct in the house. Cameron, meanwhile, is glitching again. She tries to free a pigeon from the chimney, and her malfunctioning hand crushes it. Later, she's in the shed with her own forearm split open, doing repairs, when Riley walks up to the window and sees everything. The girl who already knew too much now knows the rest. She runs to Jesse and begs to be released from the mission. Jesse refuses. And here the show finally says the quiet part. Jesse's real plan was for Cameron to kill Riley, so John would see his pet Terminator with a dead girl's blood on her hands and destroy her himself. Riley was always the sacrifice. Riley, to her credit, figures that out too, after Cameron corners her in the shed during a child services visit and answers the question, "Are you going to kill me?" with a flat, repeated, "I don't know." So Riley confronts Jesse at her apartment, and it becomes a real fight. Fists and bottles and furniture, a scared kid swinging for her life against a trained soldier. It ends when Jesse shoots her. I'll skip the joke on that one. The episode's other gut punch is quieter. Cameron, who cannot self-terminate, builds a small device and hands it to John. A trigger, rigged to detonate an explosive against her chip. She gives the boy she was sent to protect the power to end her, because her own hands can't be trusted anymore. And as John pockets the kill switch, he spots another dead bird lying in the grass. The future opens this one. 2027, the morning Jessie ships out aboard the submarine Jimmy Carter, back when she and Derek were just 2 soldiers in love during an apocalypse. Derek warns her about her captain, Queeg, a reprogrammed 888. He's not a bloke, he's not on our side, and if it ever comes to it, aim for the chip. Their goodbye is the arc's whole thesis. I love you too means I'll see you later. In the present, the Connors are abandoning the house because Riley's hospitalization put too many eyes on them. Then, Casey the landlady passes along her cop ex's newest case. A girl pulled from the river, shot, with old scars and a small star tattoo on her wrist. Sarah recognizes the description instantly. Riley is dead, and Sarah has to carry that sentence inside to her son. John goes straight to Cameron and asks if she did it. Her answer is the cruelest thing she could say. "What if I did?" Then she denies it, reminds him she sometimes lies to him, and says she's sorry for his loss. He wants to believe her and can't quite manage it. The submarine half escalates. The Jimmy Carter survives a Skynet hunter-killer called a Kraken by diving to the ragged edge of crush depth and playing dead. Then Queeg announces new orders from John Connor himself. Divert to an oil platform and retrieve a package. The away team comes face to face with 3 Terminators, says only, "Connor sent me," and receives a sealed metal box no one may open. Queeg knows what's inside and isn't telling anyone. Back in the present, the family stages a proof of life so Riley's foster father won't call the police. Cameron calls the house and does Riley's voice perfectly, teasing John, apologizing, signing off with, "I love you," while the real girl lies in a morgue. Sarah is furious. Cameron observes that John's genuine reaction made the call more authentic. And in the last scene, Sarah admits to Cameron that she'd planned to wait with Derek's sniper rifle and put one through her chip, and asks what kind of life John could ever have. Cameron's answer is the season in 4 words: John's life, someday. And in her math, the only way John is ever safe is alone. A flashback conversation sets the table. Derek asks John how long he'd last if Cameron decided to kill him. Face to face, John doesn't flinch. "If she wants me dead, I'm dead." On the Jimmy Carter, the sealed box gets opened, because sealed boxes always do. Inside is a dormant liquid metal Terminator, which promptly thaws, kills a petty officer, and vanishes into the boat. Paranoia does the rest. The crew starts accusing each other of being metal. A mob beats Jesse to check that she bleeds, and Queeg executes the ringleader mid-sentence, then refuses again to explain the mission. So Jesse relieves him of command, and when he declines to submit his chip, she shoots it out of his skull with a plasma rifle. With no one left who can drive a submarine, she scuttles the boat. And as she's escaping, the liquid metal thing rises in front of her, wearing the dead officer's face, and delivers a message. Tell John Connor the answer is no. At Serrano Point, the debrief breaks what's left of her. Instead of the future John, it's Cameron who questions her, and she tells Jesse that speaking to her is the same as speaking to Connor. Jesse demands to know the question the metal said no to, and Cameron gives it up. "Will you join us?" Then Cameron informs her, with machine flatness, that Jesse had been pregnant and miscarried during the mission. And in the rubble of all of it, grieving Jesse spots a scrappy blonde kid in the refugee tunnels and asks her name. It's Riley. That's where the whole plan was born. In the present, John goes to the morgue alone and reads the truth off Riley's wounds. The killer was Jesse, never Cameron. He's waiting in Jesse's dark apartment with a gun when she gets home. And what follows is John Connor finally arriving inside John Baum. He catalogs every tell that gave Riley away, explains that he kept the lie going because he wanted something real or wanted to win, and tells Jesse that if he has to live with his part in Riley's death, so does she. Then he lowers the gun and lets her go. Outside, she walks into Derek. He tells her about Billy Wisher, the best friend he executed for the future's sake. Tells her she isn't even his Jessie, not from his timeline, and passes along John's order to release her. Then he adds 3 words, "I'm not John Connor," and raises his gun as she runs. The show cuts away. We never learn if the shot landed. When John asks later, Derek says only, "John Connor let her go." That night, John finally cracks, crying against his mother's knee while Cameron sits beside them, motionless. Sarah splits the family. Derek and Cameron get sent to a desert safe house, and Sarah quietly drives John somewhere even they don't know exists. A lighthouse on the coast where Charlie Dixon has been hiding since Michelle died. Sarah has a reason beyond security. She's found a lump in her breast. The cancer that killed her in the other timeline, the one she's been waiting on for 2 seasons, may have arrived, and she's delivering John to the one man she trusts to raise what's left of his childhood. Everything else detonates at once. At ZeraCorp, John Henry seizes mid-playdate with Savannah, hurting her arm as malware floods through him. Someone out there found the most advanced AI in human history and tried to murder it. When they bring him back online, his first words reframe the whole series. There is another, one like me. The attack traces to a worm spread across a huge share of the world's computers, and buried in its code, John Henry finds the original programmer's name, Miles Dyson, the dead father of Skynet. "I believe we are brothers," John Henry says. And what does the brother want? He wants what we all want, Ms. Weaver, to survive. At the hospital, Sarah's ultrasound comes back with the strangest mercy this show ever wrote. The lump turns out to be a cyst formed around a tiny metal wire, a transmitter, courtesy of Kaliba, which means they've been tracking her, hearing her, and they now know about the lighthouse, the locker, everything. Armed men hit all 3 locations simultaneously. Sarah fries the implant with defibrillator paddles and fights her way clear. Derek gets tasered and taken, and Cameron gets electrocuted into shutdown by men following step-by-step chip removal instructions transmitted by John Henry's brother. The man with the knife takes too long. Cameron reboots with his hand still inside her skull, and that's that. She frees Derek with a typically warm explanation. They'd have tortured John's location out of him. He insists he'd never break. She replies that he has before. At the lighthouse, the perimeter siren screams. Charlie pushes John to the boat, stays on the dock, laying down cover fire against a sniper, and blows the rigged dock to give the kid a clean escape. Sarah comes back to burning fences, dead strangers, and an empty mooring, and lets herself feel relief because the boat is gone, so John made it out. Then she looks down at the water. Charlie Dixon floats below her, face up. No joke here either. The man wanted nothing but a normal life with this woman twice, and the future billed him for both. It starts in a cemetery. Sarah brings Derek to Kyle's grave, and 25 years of weathering mean he can't even tell which marker is his brother's. They fight about Charlie, about secrets, and Sarah says the most honest thing she has left. Everybody dies for me. Derek lets it stand. The dead shooter from the lighthouse was carrying a photo of a little red-haired girl, and John recognizes her, Savannah Weaver. Kaliba's next target is a child, so the Connors stake out the Weaver mansion to protect a girl whose mother is a liquid metal Terminator. When the Kaliba machine comes, it kills the babysitter, hunts Savannah through the house, and runs head-on into both John Henry, guiding the girl by headset from his basement, and the Connors coming through the door. John grabs Savannah. Cameron engages the machine, and in the middle of the firefight, it shoots Derek Reese through the head. He's dead before he hits the floor. There are no last words, and no music swell. The show buries a main character the way the war would, mid-mission, and moves on because the mission isn't done. I have nothing funny to say about it. Derek gets laid to rest in the same graveyard as Kyle, two Reese brothers, 25 years apart. The Connors escape with Savannah, which legally makes them kidnappers, and the manhunt around Sarah Connor goes national. While they shelter the girl, Savannah innocently describes her friend John Henry, who lives in the basement at her mommy's work and can't leave because of the cord in his head, and Mr. Ellison teaches him things. The family does the math, and the floor drops out. Cromarty's body is alive with something new inside it, and Sarah names the nightmare. It's Cyberdyne all over again. Cameron votes to kill Ellison. John forbids it. Cameron also hands John one more unexploded truth. The lighthouse trip wasn't only about hiding him. Sarah found a lump and believed she was dying, and was planning to leave him with Charlie. John absorbs that in silence, like he absorbs everything now. In the basement, John Henry asks Weaver the question the episode is named for. Cain killed Abel, and one brother was cursed to wander alone. Which brother am I? Weaver's answer should frost the room. Perhaps you're neither. Perhaps in this story, you are God. And the trade Ellison brokers, Savannah returned in exchange for a meeting with Weaver, goes exactly as wrong as you'd fear. Sarah hands the girl over in a stadium parking structure, walks out, and the police take her down. John watches his mother get arrested, screaming, and can do nothing. The finale. Sarah sits in federal custody while an agent named Aldridge calmly lists a decade of charges and offers her son a choice between cuffs and a coffin. Her answer never changes. My son died in that bank vault 8 years ago. At a Fleabag motel, John is unraveling in the other direction, researching whether Cameron's nuclear power cell could be what's killing his mother. When he confronts her, he throws her whole rap sheet at her. The dead birds, the glitches, the time she tried to murder him. You're not perfect, he tells her. You're a machine. Sarah's only uncompromised channel is a priest, Father Vanilla, who ferries a message out. Leave. Don't think of me. Don't come for me. It ends with the line that breaks her son. We lose everybody we love. That same night, Cameron wakes John, explains that deep down her code still wants him dead and always will, then lies back and has him reach under her breastplate to check her power cell with his own hand. What does it feel like? She asks. Cold. That's good. That's perfect. It's the strangest scene this franchise ever aired. And then she says it's time to go. They hit the jail. Cameron walks through police gunfire, deliberately wounding no one, losing the flesh over her left eye so the red lens stares out, while John Henry, watching remotely, pops every lock in the building. Sarah walks out through the riot, past her priest, who watches the locks fall like the story of Peter. Her greeting is perfect, Sarah. You look like hell. Can you keep up? But John has a plan now, and it points at ZeraCorp. Across the table, the Connors hear the pitch they never expected. The enemy she's been building John Henry to fight is Skynet itself. And mid-sentence, a Kaliba drone, the thing from the desert, strafes the building and comes through the window. Weaver erupts into a sheet of liquid metal, shields all 3 humans from the blast, and reforms with one word: run! Sarah snarls that they're trying to kill her son. Weaver's reply rearranges 2 seasons. They're trying to kill her son too. just like Sarah is. Down in the basement, her son is John Henry, and John Henry is gone. He's escaped through Weaver's own time displacement machine, and in his chair sits Cameron's body, head opened, chip missing. Weaver corrects the obvious read. Cameron handed her chip over willingly. Whatever the two machines said to each other down there, it ended with her choosing to leave with him into time. Sarah spots the Turk in the racks and explodes. "You're building Skynet," and Weaver answers that she built a countermeasure and suggests Sarah be careful about the names she throws at machines. The time field spins up so Weaver can chase John Henry, and John steps into it because John Henry has Cameron's chip. He's got her. Sarah stays. Mother and son look at each other through the light, and the whole exchange is 2 lines. "Mom, I'll stop it." The sphere takes John and Weaver and leaves Cameron's empty body behind because metal without living tissue doesn't travel. John lands in the war. The actual future, rubble and dogs and resistance fighters, and the soldiers who find him nearly shoot him as metal until their leader stands them down. It's Derek Reese, alive. And when John gives his name, John Connor, Derek just shrugs. "Don't know you, kid." Nobody in the room does. By jumping over his own life, John erased it. He skipped the years where he became a legend, and this future never heard of him. Then Derek grins, says his brother's back, "You're wearing his coat," and Kyle Reese walks in. John's father, alive, a stranger. And beside Kyle, looking at John with eyes that have never seen him before, is Allison Young, Cameron's face, the human original. John Connor stands in a world where the only faces he knows belong to people who've never met him. And back in the present, Sarah is alone with the machines still out there, and her vow hanging over everything. "I'll stop it." And that's where Fox pulled the plug. The cancellation came in 2009, after 31 episodes, and it landed on the biggest cliffhanger this franchise has ever set up. Nothing you just heard ever got resolved. John is a nobody in a future that never heard his name, standing next to his young father and the human ghost of the machine he crossed time to save. Cameron's chip is riding around inside John Henry, somewhere in history. Weaver is loose. Kaliba was never unmasked, and Sarah Connor is alone in the present with a vow and no army. But look at the distance everybody traveled. Sarah started this story waking from a nightmare next to a man she was about to abandon, a woman who half believed she'd be dead of cancer before the bombs fell. She ends up choosing to stay behind, alone, to fight the future with her bare hands. John started as a kid who couldn't be trusted at a shopping mall, and ends as the man who spares his enemy in a dark apartment, orders no one killed, and steps through time on his own authority. Cameron arrived as a gun in a pretty girl's hands, telling John to come with her if he wanted to live, and ends by handing over the one thing she is, her chip, herself, for reasons she never explains. And Derek Reese, the soldier who trusted no metal and shot his own best friend for the future's sake, dies in half a second protecting a little girl, and gets a grave next to the brother he spent 2 timelines missing. 31 episodes, and it was just getting started. If you want more canceled science fiction that deserved better, there's a video on your screen right now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.